Hey everybody, Rosematter here, and welcome to part 93 of my Umineko Let's Play. In the last episode, Angie is being swayed by Burn Castell about trying to find what was it called, the single truth, and that's what Angie's been wanting all along. But I had a feeling with Burn, like with that game that she had for Beato and Battler to solve, that wasn't the only part of it. She had something bigger in mind. And this seems to be her final game is casting Angie over to her side and having Angie be swayed away from Battler's game. So we learned about the presence of Ava's diary, which has been hidden this whole time, that has the truth of the events of Rokenjima. And it seems like we're coming up to that decision that Angie has to make, whether she wants to learn the truth once and for all or not. So we're going to continue on with the game, and I imagine that, I don't know when that decision is going to be happening, but I imagine that Burn Castell is probably going to reveal her grand plan soon to Battler. Angie and Battler are probably going to maybe get into an argument about it, because she seems to have kind of like lost her respect for her brother. So anyway, let's continue on and let's see what happens next. The discussions over in Burn Castell's reasoning game were getting heated at each of the tables. At some point, each table had started competing to see which could solve it first. Hey, finally, Battler has maybe noticed something might be amiss.
もう来てもいい頃よ。どっちが先に到着するか、賭けでもする？エリカが遅くなるのはともかく、エンジェもずいぶん遅くなったわね。一体どこの深淵に突き落としてたやら。失礼ね。ちゃんとソファーに紅茶でくつろいでもらってたわよ。ベルンカステル教の好む紅茶がエンジェの口に合うと良いのだがな。
確かにな。
失礼ね。誰の口にだって合うわよ。エリカなんか、私の紅茶はポットの最後の一滴からお味噌の壺の底まできれいに舐めとるわよ。
なぜそこで味噌が出てくるのか大いに疑問だぜ。
それにしてもエリカか。あやつとは久しぶりの再会になるな。
I am excited to see Erica again. Once again, something I never thought I'd say. She is certainly an interesting character, but I started to feel for her towards the end, and she certainly adds a little flavor to the story.
名探偵殿があのベルンカステルのゲームを解くのにどの程度の時間をかけるのか見も。
あの子は得意よ。こういうゲームは。多分上から下までを3度も読んだらもう答えを出しちゃうんじゃない？
Definitely not how I did it.
だろうな。正解を5万円で語る。あいつの顔を早く見てやりたいぜ。
いやいや、それどころかあやつのこと。いろいろとへりくつをつけて、バトラ一家以外にも犯行は可能だなどと言いかねんぞ。
Which is funny because that's exactly Erica did just that, where she did the whole thing about like who's to say, or like the thing about like George, who's to say George didn't murder someone, before he came onto the island. Therefore, he's still technically a murderer.
だな。
Or a culprit.
むしろ正解よりその自信たっぷりのへりくつが聞きたい気分だ。
Apparently, Battler and Beato were looking forward to their reunion with Erica. They had already dueled with Erica in 2 separate games, but now there was no distinction between foes and allies. They truly wanted to welcome her to this after-show party as a friend.
それにしてもちょっと意外な感じ。
何が？
だってあんたがこんなにもあっさりエンジェを解放するなんて。
Even, yeah, Lambda Delta also is like, yeah, this seems a little too good to be true. Making sure Battler and the others couldn't see her face, Lambda Delta snickered.
そんなに意外？
ええ、意外よ。ベルンのことだから解放せずに次々とバトラに難問を突きつけていじめ抜いたり、あるいはエンジェにおかしなことを吹き込んでゲームを最後にかき回してくれる程度のことはするんじゃないかと思ってた。ベルンのことを世界で誰よりも知っているつもりでいたのに、予想が外れてがっかりよ。
言うわね。でも安心して。やはりあんたは
Yep.
私のことを世界で一番理解しているのは間違いないのだから。
そりゃそうよ。このラムダデルタ様は全宇宙で一番ベルンのことを愛してて大好きで理解しちゃってるんだから。
Lambda Delta was flustered by Bernkastel's apparently friendly words, which were very rare coming from her.
バトラス様、ご歓談中失礼いたします。エンジェ様がお帰りになりました。
おお、帰ってきたか。よかった。無事か。
雨に少し濡れてしまったようで、今熊沢がタオルを用意しております。
When Badler heard this, he breathed a sigh of relief. Then he turned to face Bernkastel, showing her a forced smile as though apologizing for still suspecting her just a little. Bernkastel showed no reaction and simply continued to wear a blank expression with a slight smile.
エンジェ様のお帰りでございます。
ただいま。
Oh, that's older Angie's voice. He's all shooken. She's like, I can't trust Badler.
バトラ、エンジェが帰ったぞ。
エンジ
She's gonna be very cold to him.
ェ、よかった。心配したぜ。
Angie stared at Badler as he dashed towards her with a relieved smile. Her expression seemed somehow indifferent.
バトラったらね、あんたのことを私が鎖か何かで岩牢に吊るしてたとでも思ったみたいよ。
いやいや、そこまでは思ってなかったぜ。
ベルンカステルの友人の家で紅茶をごちそうになってただけよ。なかなか美味しかったわ。
味噌とか梅干しは入ってなかったか？
Wonder if Angie's gonna... She probably won't call him out directly. I think she's just gonna be cold to him while she's trying to figure out what to do. Eventually, she's probably gonna sneak her way out of the party. She has to go to the chapel for Ava's diary.
入ってるわけないでしょ。
As Angie spoke bluntly, she walked right past her brother and exchanged a few whispered words with Bernkastel.
どうしたバトラ？
He's like, yeah, she did something to her.
なんでもない。
Said something to her. If he said his little sister being cold to him had left him feeling forlorn, Beato would either laugh at him or scratch him. After all, Angie was a girl at a tender age. She might be in a bad mood for reasons that a man like him couldn't understand. Taking note of this and having satisfied himself that Angie was okay, he made to walk away.
バトラ、エンジェが呼んでいるぞ。
ああ、すまん。
さっきから呼んでるわよ。無視しないで。
Oh, maybe she will call him out here.
別に無視してたわけじゃねえぜ。なんだよお前。さっきから機嫌が悪いぞ。
大方、ベルンカステル教に珍しい紅茶とでも偽られて、おかしなものを飲まされたせいだろう。
あんたに用はないわ。
Oh shit.
ちょっと引っ込んでて。
Oh.
お兄ちゃんと二人で話がしたいの。
そうはいかぬぞ。わらわはこう見えても領主夫人。
I love Beato just lets it roll off her back.
バトラに関してはすでにそなたよりもわらわの方が。
悪い、ベアト。少しだけ席を外してくれるか。
By now, Badler had realized that Angie's issue is more than just a slight bad mood. Beato puffed out her cheeks as though she wanted to say something back. However, she just let out a sigh and walked away.
これでいいか。
ええ。だってこれは、私とお兄ちゃんのゲームでしょ。プレイヤーは私。ゲームマスターはお兄ちゃん。私たちの間にいくつ駒が入り込もうと、結局は私とお兄ちゃんとの直接の戦いであることに何の変わりもない。
まあ、確かに俺がゲームマスターだが、別にお前と戦ってるわけじゃないぞ。この最後のゲームは、お前を1986年の六軒島に招待するために開いたものだ。
ゲームは 勝敗を決するために行われるものよ。敵と味方が揃って初めてゲームと呼ぶ。そこをごまかさないで。
お前何を言い出すんだ。
すっかり騙されていたわ。私も最初はお兄ちゃんが1986年のあの日に招待してくれるのだと思ってた。
Having little baby Angie just speak so forcefully and adult-like.
でも違う。これは全部お兄ちゃんの茶番じゃない。甘ったるい物語でお茶を濁して私を煙に巻いて、孤独な未来へ安っぽい温かさを手土産に追い返そうとしているだけじゃない。私は最初から求めてるわ。あの日六軒島で何があったのか。それに対するお兄ちゃんの答えがこのゲーム、この甘ったるい幻想パーティー。私の問いに対するお兄ちゃんの答えはもはや明白だわ。私は真実が知りたい。そしてお兄ちゃんに教える気はない。
エンジェ、いいか、そうじゃない。
ごまかさないで。これは私とお兄ちゃんの最後の戦いのゲームだったのよ。私はあの日の真実を求める。そしてお兄ちゃんはあの日の真実を幻想で覆い隠そうとしてる。何も変わらない。お兄ちゃんとベアトが戦ってた時と何も構図は変わらないのよ。もうすぐで私はお兄ちゃんに全てをうやむやにされたままゲーム版を追い出されるところだった。
Just like, but Bernkastel showed me the way. That was gonna be like, what did Bern tell you? And it just feels so bad. It feels like, yeah, she has been twisted to turn against her brother. Like, I believe that Bedler, like, his reasoning for this is not what Angie says. It's just to give her something sentimental as, like, a parting gift. Like, he's got a reason for this.
あいにくね。私はもうこのゲームは私とお兄ちゃんの戦いであることを理解してるの。
The way she's acting, it makes me feel like I made the wrong choice without actually making a choice. It feels like I'm on my way to the bad end.
もうこれ以上は簡単に騙せると思わないことね。
Angie's shouting tore apart the peaceful atmosphere. And then Bern's just in the corner, just sipping tea, just enjoying the show. Family members and the residents of Fantasy gulped and watched the scene, wondering what was going on. Beato tried to run up to Badler, but he motioned for her to stay back.
何が望みなんだ。
最初からただ一つ、1986年の六軒島の真実、それだけを私は求めてる。
真実は猫箱の中に封じられてる。猫箱の外のお前にはたどり着けない。
だからこの甘ったるい幻想で私をごまかそうと。
Wonder if she's gonna mention, like, the book. You never wanted me to see that book. Well, you know what? I've got the key. I know where it is. I'm gonna go open it right now.
確かにこれは幻想だ。だがお前にこの楽しい雰囲気を、親族の和気あいあいとした気持ちを思い出してほしかった。あの日あの島で何があったかじゃない。お前が忘れてしまった親族会議の温かな雰囲気を思い出してほしかったんだ。
それはお兄ちゃんが押し付ける一方的な幻想よ。私はそれを断固拒否する。拒絶する。
1986年の真実など存在しない。猫箱の中は虚無だ。お前はありもしないものを求めてる。
That does sound like not true. I believe in Badler, but it does sound like he's just trying to, like, placate her.
私はもう騙されないわよ。存在するのよ、あの日の真実は。それは唯一の生還者によって書き残され現存している。
Maybe that book itself is a trap by Bern. Maybe I know it said Ava's diary. I know, but I feel like as soon as you open that book up, We lose. Battler's expression faltered for just an instant, and Ange didn't miss it. So he was hiding it after all. Oni-chan had been hiding the book with the single truth from me. I mean, he had it kind of out in plain sight right at the beginning of the game. I don't know if he was hiding it.
エヴァおばさん、あんたが死んでから私は初めて感謝するわ。あんたがしっかりとあの日の真実を書き残してくれていたおかげで、私は真実を知る最後の機会を得た。エンジェちゃん聞いて、あの日記はおばさんのデタラメが書いてあるだけで何の意味も。ごまかしは不要よ。あんたの日記にはあの日の真実が記されていると。
I feel like Burn is like leading me to do something I'm not supposed to do.
すでに赤き真実で断じられているのよ。
There is the red truth, and it could be Ava's piece is like trying to dissuade her from reading it, just like Badler is.
バカな。ゲームマスターのバトラ以外の誰が赤き真実を使えるというのか。
アウアウローラね。
正解よ。一なる真実の章は1998年という未来世界の存在。その中身に赤き真実で保証を与えるという大役が他の誰にできるっていうの？ベルンカステルは全てを教えてくれたわ。私はもうお兄ちゃんに騙されない。私が欲しいのは甘ったるい幻想じゃない、本当の真実。そしてそれをいくら1986年のお兄ちゃんが覆い隠そうとも、1998年の私には暴くことができる。なぜなら1986年のベアトリーチェがお兄ちゃんで、私は1998年のベアトリーチェだから。
Cyclone rose up around Ange. Please, can we get an Ange like every other Beatrice has had like sweet clothes and a cool transformation. I want an Ange witch, please. It was a golden swirl of gold butterflies, just like the golden witch, Beatrice. Come on, yes, I heard it. Oh. Oh, yes, yes, perhaps. No? Hey! Hey, she looks cool. She looks cool. Okay. I did see the, I heard the sound, so we've got... I love that we have technically a new character right at the end. The witch who rules over the future in the year 1998. She stands completely on the outside of the CATBOX, making her entirely different from all the other witches. Just what will she find in this final game? The cyclone of gold broke apart, and as gold leaves scattered across the room, the final witch who would inherit Beatrice's name in the future appeared.
Ange. Beatrice.
あんたは黄金と無限の魔女。私は違う。黄金と真実の魔女。いかなる幻想も私を拒むことはできないわ。
I like that even her her little beads turn black. It's like she's been taken over by the dark magic.
さあ、お兄ちゃんの退屈なパーティーはもうおしまい。ここからは私のパーティーになるわ。パーティーを賑わせるゲームだって用
Oh,
意
she
して
got a
きた。
game.
よろしくね、エヴァおばさん。え？
When Ange snapped her fingers, she vanished among a swirl of gold butterflies. In her place, in the middle of the cyclone, a girl wearing a dress appeared, bowing modestly. Erica? Or, right. When's Erica gonna show up?
お前は
失礼しちゃう話よね。私にだけパーティーの招待状がないなんて。
Maybe a reason he intentionally didn't invite her. Because, I mean, he did even invite Erica and Burn.
そなたはエヴァ。
私はロッケン島の唯一の生
Badler, I still want to choose to believe in you, man, but that seems a little sus that you intentionally that you kept Ava Beatrice away.
そして1986年から1998年まで黄金と無限の魔女を名乗る未来の魔女バトラ君の甘ったるい幻想なんて未来の世界では湖面に落ちる一粒の雪より儚いわさあ楽しんでちょうだいさあさあ思い出してごらんなさいあなたたちの無限の推理を
When Ava held her hand to the heavens, light gathered there and took the form of a bottle. Yes, a bottle. Ah, yes, the bottle with all the different stories. A glass bottle with no label. There was no alcohol inside. Sealed within it was a fragment that let off a pale, sinister light. Too late.
さあショータイム
Ooh, is this a new song? I like it. The bottle was slammed against the floor and smashed to pieces. As soon as the fragment within it touched the outside air, it flashed white and burst. At first, it seemed nothing had happened. This does feel like a final boss fight music. However, Ava grinned at them before becoming a cloud of butterflies and vanishing. Come to think of it, Bernkestel was gone as well.
あいつ何をしやがったんだ。
おそらく未来の世界より持ち帰った未来の猫箱の中身とでも言おうか。
つまりどういうことだ。なんだ。
So the moral of the story is don't invite Bernkestel to your party. She's just going to ruin everything. At that moment, they heard a tremendous hiss. It was as though large chunks of hail had started falling everywhere. An earthquake accompanied that noise, and the whole mansion groaned. It's like they're breaking apart his game. Dust began to fall from the ceiling. At the same time, it seemed as though the curtain-covered window glowed with a pale light.
一体何事だというの。
キリエ外何よあれ
Everyone rushed to a window in response to her voice. Of course, Badler and Beato went too. Oh, there they drew the curtains, looked at the scene outside, and were stunned into silence. Hinzo's words spoke for the first impression felt by all who looked out the window.
美しいものが無害とは限らねえ。
美しいなんとかにはトゲがあるのはお約束に。
Though everyone found the scene beautiful, it gave them all an ominous feeling. Outside the window, countless small objects, crystal fragments glowing pale blue, lay strewn about everywhere like fallen hail. Is this the CATBOX, like, being disintegrated? The word fantastical perfectly summed up the scene that lay before them in the glowing rose garden.
今あそこ何か動いたわ。おい
Erica?
あそこに誰
She's the only one who hasn't shown up yet.
いやあれあの光るかけらから
Gotta be.
人影が生え出してる。煉獄の七姉妹戦闘態勢。
With those words of Lucifer's, everyone finally realized they were surrounded by danger. One by one, the countless fragments shook and burst, and large, dark bodies rose up from inside each. They were giants with goat heads. One after another, they appeared from the insides of broken fragments. The realization that the countless fragments lying all over the rose garden were responsible for the blue glow covering the entire area sent a wave of cold terror rushing over all present.
45全集警戒。
レーダーが真っ白です。ジャミングされてるか、もしくは乱反射無数、敵数確認不能。
Even as she said this, the glowing rose garden outside the window was filling with giant goats. The fragments carrying the goats weren't just in the rose garden. They were spread evenly across the entire island. Not just the rose garden, but the entire area around the mansion had to be half covered with goats by now.
金系。
包囲されたものと申し上げたてまつる。
Know that we are completely fucked.
見りゃわかるぜ。
どうするのバトラー。
招待状がねえ客ならお引き取りいただかねえとな。こいつらは何者なんだ。ベアトのとこの従者ってわけじゃなさそうだな。
ヤギの姿はこのゲーム版の駒の形を模倣しただけのことでしょう。リーチやリーヤの眷属じゃないわ。もっと厄介な何かよ。
なるほど。ボトルメッセージの具現化というわけですか。
ボトルメッセージベアトの。
違うな、こいつは未来の住人たちの妄想のかけらだ。
猫箱はそのうちに無限を秘める。その結果、箱の外の住人たちはその中身を無限に想像することが許される。その無限の妄想がこやつらの正体だろう。あのヤギたちは私たちをどうするつもりでしょう。
仲良く握手ができる雰囲気には見えへんで。
あいつらは私たちがこの島でどんな惨劇が繰り広げられたかを勝手にでっち上げてはルフして回る最悪の連中よ。私が真実を語らないことを面白がり、勝手に次々と惨劇を生み出して。
なるほど。1986年の猫箱を勝手に妄想する。
未来世界にはありとあらゆる解釈が存在します。それらは私たちが否定しない限り、全てが全て真実だと言い張り、
And that was
この
like
島に居座り続けるのです。
it's the ultimate thing where it's like we do have to find that single truth or else all of these truths will exist in one space.
これは厄介なことになったね。
私たちは包囲され、絶体絶命のピンチというわけだわ。
あいつら何。
食べてるよ。何か食べてる。
バラを食べている。
The squirming crowd of goats was busily doing something. That's just goats do. They eat. If you looked closely, you could see them sticking their heads into the rose bushes and munching away. And it wasn't just the rose bushes. Light pole. Oh, they're like breaking down this whole world. Light poles, the bricks of the flower beds, and even the stone paving itself. They were biting all of it. Almost as if they were trying to eat up the whole island.
違う。あれはただ食べてるんじゃない。
食べているんじゃなければ一体何だと。あれは食っているのではない。侵食し削り取っているのだ。このゲーム版そのものをな。
ゲーム版を食うだと。
Certainly something I wasn't expecting was a bunch of goats coming in and eating away the whole game board.
未来の世界では誰もが今日の私たちは惨劇に飲み込まれたと信じてる。だから彼らは和やかに過ごす私たちの真実を認めないの。過去の真実は未来の真実の前に劣る。あのヤギたちの無慈悲なる未来の顎と牙は我らの真実を認めず、彼らの期待する真実で侵食するのだ。
ふざけやがって。これが俺たちの真実なんだ。勝手に未来の、それもよその奴らの期待する真実に塗り替えようとするんじゃねえ。
Ooh, creepy. The garden outside the window is now filled with too many goats to count, all chewing away. This repulsive scene stole the words from everyone's lips. They weren't just stunned into silence. There was just no point in making a fuss and letting the goats know for no reason. No point in letting them know that there was plenty of prey waiting in this bright, warm room. Prey that was softer and more satisfying to chew than roses or bushes.
あのヤギ、こっちを見てますよ。
静かに。騒 騒いではダメだ。こっちへ来ますさ。まずくありませんか。
I saw one of the newly born goats' heads slowly turn towards their window. There was already a huge swarm of them in the garden, so it was no surprise that, when one of them looked around for new prey, it would see the light from this window. Its immense, eerie body slowly approached. As it grew closer, they could finally see its disturbing form clearly. The eyes blazed and yet were still cold, ruthless, and reptilian. The cruel fangs and jaw could tear apart and crush anything. Any fangs that could chew through brick would hardly have a problem chewing through humans. Its massive body had to be taller than the windows themselves, and it was lumbering towards this window.
この窓は実は後ろ宮家特注の防弾ガラスだということは。
防弾程度であの巨体の剛腕が防げるとは思えぬぞ。
うわー、来た来た、かけてくる。
金系、この窓を許すことなきなりと知りたてまつれ。
The power of Cornelius' seal formed a shield around the glass. The goat was blown back, unable to even touch the glass because of this power. Its weight made the earth tremble. They could feel that clearly, even inside. But that tremor had also drawn the attention of the nearby goats. A pack of goats started shuffling closer, and then realizing they were in competition for this new prey, the pack quickly broke into a thundering charge. The window protected by Cornelius' seal would probably be safe. However, there were many windows in the Great Hall. For the first time, those windows became a source of terror instead of sunlight and a lovely view.
ガートルード。
金系、この窓を許すことなきなりと知りたてまつれ。
Gertrude sealed another window. The goats trying to break in through that one were thrown back. But at the same time, those inside the building heard the terrible crash of a third window being shattered. Scattering fragments of glass everywhere, the massive goats broke through the window frame and entered the building. Come on, Kraus, use some of those punching skills that we saw you. You took down a goat? Took down one goat before. You do it again? Those words really were coming from the goat's mouth, along with its steaming, foul breath. However, it didn't get a chance to say any more. It's nice to see the sisters on our side for once. Forehead, neck, shoulder, chest, side, gut, knee. The stakes of the seven sisters buried themselves in deep one after another.
なんてごつくてまずい貫き心地。こんなまずい連中何匹も食ってらんないわ。
Several other windows shattered one after another, and goats squeezed their way in through the window frames. Their mouths were still stuffed with the bricks they had been snacking on. Each time they chewed, it made a ghastly sound like bones being crushed.
撃退します。
シエスタ隊、近接戦闘準備。
待ちな、ドンパチやってもさらに騒ぎで他のヤギたちを呼び寄せちまうだけだ。
2階へ逃れるのだ。階段を封印すれば時間も稼げよう。
みんな、大階段を上がれ。急げ。
After sniffling noisily as though scanning the smells around them, the goats started chewing on whatever chairs, tables, or curtains were close by. The goats would chew anything to bits as long as it was near them. If the others were careful not to attract the goats' attention, they would be able to escape from this place. The humans ran on ahead up to the second floor, while the fantasy creatures who were used to fighting guarded the rear. The goats were completely absorbed by their all-consuming feast in the hall. Even the portrait of Beatrice, which might have been called the symbol of the whole Ushiromiya family, had now been brutally chewed up.
バトラー、人間は全員2階へ避難したぞ。
よし、ドラノール、すべての階段の封印を頼む。
ガートルードたちが行います。しかし時間稼ぎが必要です。
Loud beating sounds, whether that could be called knocking, was unclear, and sounds of shattering glass could be heard from all parts of the mansion.
さて皆さん、お仕事の時間でございます。
You just gotta get Gap in there. Just have her, just send them away through a hole, wherever she could put them.
煉獄の七姉妹、ここに。さあ行くよお前たち。今夜は食い放題だわ。シエスタタイ、外部タスク、オールスリープ、自動更新切断、データは取るな、捕虜は取るな。
第7管区アイゼルネ・ユングフラウ、領主命令により任務を開始します。
助立ちするぜ。リオン、お前は足手まといだ。2階へ上がってろ。
でもウィル、ここは私たちに任せ、あなたは上へ。あなたにも家族を守るという仕事がありますよ。わかりました。皆さんご無事で。
The mansion was filled with the sounds of bashing, crushing, smashing, and chewing. It's funny how, like, the first half of this story was, like, all just like, yeah, happy times with the family. And now it's like action, action, fight scenes. It's like they have to make up for lost time. The goats and their waves of destruction were drawing steadily closer.
バトラ卿、ガートルードたちが別階段の封鎖を完了しました。残る階段はこの大階段だけです。あっちの階段はちっちゃいから早いわね。でもこの階段は大きいから時間をかけそうね。時間稼ぎが大変だわ。
Lambda Delta spoke as though it were someone else's problem. It only took a glance at her face to see she had no intention of lending a hand. She is a true, neutral party. She's like, I'm not getting myself involved in anything. I will just observe. Even so, Beato didn't scold her. This was a game between Battler and Ange. Lambda Delta was only a theater goer who had been invited.
悪く思わないでね。今日もに食われたら私だって死んじゃうわ。悪いけど私は傍観者に回らせてもらうわ。
もとよりそなたは傍観者だ。助力を頼めぬのは残念だがな。
気を使ってんだろ。俺たちの見せ場を奪わないために。
そういうことにしておきましょう。
As a Voyager witch, Lambda Delta could retreat from this game board of battlers if she wanted to. In other words, she was the only one who wasn't in trouble now.
じゃあね、ベルンとあんたたちのゲーム見届けさせてもらうわ。応援してるからね。
ポップコーンを食べながら。
もちろん。今日は醤油バター味にするわ。
Lambda Delta vanished with a pop. As soon as she did, a black hole opened up in midair, and Gap fell out of it.
バトラ、リーチェ、ちょっと来てくれる？多分見た方がいいものよ。
今すぐにか。
ええ、行こうぞ。みんな、ここを頼むぞ。
When Gap snapped her fingers, a large hole opened up under Battler and Beato, swallowing them both. Maybe she's going to take them to the chapel. I'm sure that's where Angie's heading towards. When it spat them back out, they were in an inky black sky, or not. Both of them were floating in the night sky. They could see Rokenjima far beneath them, and as soon as they realized this, they shuddered.
これは
群れじゃねえ。こりゃ海だな。
It was no longer a crowd of goats, but an entire sea of them. Just as Rokenjima poked out from the ocean, the mansion was now poking out from a sea of goats.
未来人ってすごいわ。一体この島での惨劇をどれだけ大勢が妄想したというのかしらね。
And that was in 1998. Imagine, like, even further with the internet being more of a thing. Like, this is something people would definitely latch onto if this was a real thing that existed in the real world.
猫箱の外の寝言に過ぎぬわ。一掃してくれようぞ。それからあれを見て、分かりにくいと思うけど、 海岸線を見て。
海岸線？
船着き場が分かりやすいわ。よく見て。わかる？まさか。
ああ、多分そのまさかだな。あいつら食ってやがるんだ、島ごとな。
さあさあおいでなさい、未来のかけらたち。巨食を幻想をまやかしをすべて食らい尽くしちゃえば。
As Ava yelled this to the heavens hovering above the raging sea, hail fell down with a pale glow. Each one was a bottle with no label and a fragment inside. They poured onto the island, smashing into bits and scattering the fragments inside them everywhere. Every now and then, one of those fragments would split in two, and split in two again, and every single one of those fragments burst and gave birth to a massive goat. To say it was like bamboo shoots springing up after the rain would be a vast understatement. The goats writhed about like bubbling, boiling water in a pot. They ate away at everything they saw. They didn't just eat the harbor, but the trees and rocks, the entire coastline itself. Hundreds, thousands, no, tens of thousands of goats continued to eat. They were chewing away at every bit of Rokonjima, this final game that Badler had prepared.
悪いわね、バトラ君。ミラーはこの島に惨劇を望んでいるの。エンジェだって真実を望んでる。巨食も幻想もまやかしもすべて食らい尽くしてあげるわ。
By now, Badler and the others had to admit it. The future wanted a tragedy. Even if the truth of this island had been a gentle, peaceful thing, the future didn't want that. The truth they wanted was painting over the past.
過去など儚いものよ。猫箱さえも食い破る。
なんて奴らなんだ。俺たちをそんなにも惨劇にぶち込みたいってのかよ。
私が見せたかったのはこれでおしまい。戦況の判断に役立ったならいいんだけど。
ああ、ありがとう。おかげで最悪の気分だ。
じゃあ次は書斎に行ってちょうだい。ゴールドスミスが呼んでるわ。
Gap snapped her fingers, and another black hole swallowed them up and spat them out in the study.
ないガープめ、落とすならベッドの上にしろというのだ。
じいさま、まずいぜ。俺たちは完全に逃げ場なしだ。
分かっておる。そしてこのまま立てこもってやり過ごすこともかなうまい。
ロノウェたちはある程度の時間を稼ぐだろうが、それも一時だろう。
They just holed up in the mansion and fought from there. It would only be a matter of time before the swarm of goats got them. Trying to repel a few of the goats who barged into the mansion would be like using a cup to bail water from a boat with a hole in it.
しばらくは防戦できるだろうが、それも時間の問題よ。
その防戦の間に何かの手を打たなきゃな。逃げるか。どこへ。ゲーム版の外へ逃げる方法はあるのか。
ゲーム版の外は我らの領地の外側よ。航海者の魔女でなければ出ることはかなわぬ。
Only Bernkastel and Lambda Delta could do it. However, there was no way Bernkastel would help. Even Lambda Delta had already announced she would be an observer instead of lending a hand.
逃げ場なしか。
It seems very dire, but we know something will happen. Maybe Angie will come to her senses. Maybe they'll figure out a way. I mean, it's partially up to me because I have to make that decision in the end, whenever that will be.
いや、一箇所だけある。
どこに。
黄金鏡だ。
なるほど。もはやそれしかあるまいか。
うん。黄金鏡はこのゲーム版の上で最も不可侵な場所だ。逃れるならそこしかあるまい。
猫箱すら食い破るやつらよ。 黄金鏡とていつ食い破ってくるかわからないわね。どうするバトラよ。
即決する。撤退だ。決断が遅れればそれさえ不可能になる。全員を黄金鏡へ避難させよう。黄金鏡の扉を開くにはどうすればいい？
わらわが扉を開くだけのことよ。しかしあのヤギどもの群れが凄まじき半魔法の毒素を放っておる。扉が開くのには時間がかかるぞ。
扉が開くまでこの書斎を死守しろってんだろ。やることは何も変わらね
え。もう一つ問題がある。黄金鏡の扉は外より二人で
Oh.
押さねば。
Will that be Battler and Beto will be the ones staying behind, perhaps?
外より二人？どういうことだ？
As soon as he said this, Battler realized this must be an agreement made between the three witches who were one.
普段ならばわざわざ扉を閉めることもないのだがな。今回ばかりはそうもいかぬだろう。
扉を閉める役目はお前とベアとしかおるまいぞ。
漁師の俺とベアと一番無難な人選だな。
うん。我ら二人だけならば身を守ることもなんとかなろうぞ。
よし、扉を開けてくれ。
Beto waved her pipe, leaving a golden trail behind as she sliced the air vertically. Then the gap of the door to the Golden Land appeared. It looked like nothing more than a thin golden string hanging from the ceiling. If you looked closely, you could see the string was getting thicker, very slowly. The door to the Golden Land certainly was opening, but so slowly that you couldn't even tell if you weren't careful. At this rate, it would probably take quite some time before it grew big enough to let a person through.
じいさまとガープはこの本丸の守りを頼む。
外壁をよじ登ってくるヤギどもが現れるかもしれんしな。
心得た。我がライフルは獲物を求めておるわ。
了解よ。そいつらを奈落の穴に落として遊んでるわ。
Alright, I want to see Kinzo going ham with a rifle. That's pretty badass. Speaking of badass, we got Will. Yeah, a giant was sliced at an angle, split into two parts, then fell to the floor, showering it with filthy dark blood and guts.
お見事です。
次は譲ってやる。
Countless massive goats, which had forced their way in from rooms and windows all across the mansion, wandered about in search of something to chew. Several of the goats noticed the group of people huddled around the staircase and lumbered closer, but they were pulverized by merciless attacks. Ronave's shields easily halted the charging of the goats, and Vergilia's magic spears pinned the giants against the wall. Delanor and Will's blades also sliced the goats effortlessly in two. The pinpoint strikes of the Seven Sisters of Purgatory could pierce the vitals of and finish off any opponent, no matter how large. The Chester sisters were holding their own too. One shot from their high-caliber firearms blasted so many goats to bits you couldn't count the kills with both hands. They would have been more than a match for a limited number of opponents. However, they weren't just up against a crowd, but an entire sea. It was like a pebble trying to face the approaching waves of a stormy sea.
方針交換急げ。煉獄隊にカバーを寄せ。弾が切れたらただのウサギじゃない。情けない。
7人がかりで一度に1匹しか殺せない文鎮どもに言われたくないに。
さあ、どんどんかかってらっしゃい。私たちを退屈させないで。
The hall was filled with the corpses of massive goats. As if in fear of the sight, the goats that came in one after another formed a wall, keeping their distance.
私たちにかなわないと思ってくれているのでしょう。
Or they're powering up a move themselves, just an impenetrable wall of goats. Just bum rush them.
それを期待したいところですが、それは甘いようです。
こいつら何なの？
They're gonna fuse together, become an ultra goat.
私たちを見てボソボソと喋り合ってるわ。
どうやら会話をして連携できる程度の知能があるようだな。
The goats were surrounding them at a distance and whispering to each other. Then they nodded at each other as though deciding something, and the whole group stirred. What are they doing? It almost looks like they're lining up in a different order.
敵陣形を変更。より突破力のある個体に最前列を譲ってもらと推定。
だからなんだというの。行くわよお前。はいお姉さん。
お待ちなさい。相手の様子が変です。
Lucifer took aim at one of them, going for its forehead. The other 6 sisters followed her lead, trying to pierce the vital organs all over the creature's body. However, there was no sound of pierced flesh. Oh shit, the sisters about to go down? 7 sisters of Purgatory were knocked back, unable to cause even the smallest wound.
何？どういうこと？こいつら何か喋ってるわ。
Goats kept whispering the same thing over and over as they slowly approached the 7 sisters. All of them whispered unanimously. Oh shit. So it's like, are they just denying their existence because the anti-magic toxin? So it's like, will they, all the fantastical creatures disappear because they don't believe in them? Yep, so they're gonna deny their existence and make them go poof. Or if not, make them disappear, like they can't do anything to them. As they whispered curses that denied the 7 sisters' existence, the goats lumbered closer.
煉獄隊を下がって援護します。
ヤギども教育してやる。
The golden bows of the Chester troops mowed down the wall of goats with a shower of bright golden bullets. Some of the goats were torn to pieces, but some of them seemed completely unaffected. And the goats who were uninjured all whispered as one. I mean, those ghosts were essentially me when I'm doing my theories. It was just like, how can I explain this in human terms? So it's like me denying their power as well.
魔法の攻撃が一切通用しないということだわ。それじゃあ私たちの攻撃は通用しないってこと？エンドレスナインに私たちを認めてくれなきゃ攻撃も通じないに。
そんなことが。
試してみるのが一番ですな。
Ronave stepped forward, stamped on the floor twice, and a red barrier rose up in front of him. A crowd of goats dashed into it with a terrifying force. While some goats were blown away by it, several of them slipped right through the magical barrier. There's no longer any point in Vergalia trying out her own magic spear. Some of the goats must also have decided her existence was fictional as well, and she would no longer be able to hurt them. All of these great demons, great witches, high-level furniture, and weapons were overcome with fear of the crowd that surrounded them, a crowd that would not be affected by any of their attacks.
どうすんのよ私たち。最後の一発まで戦うのだ。貴様らの戦士は許可しない。幻想は全て虚構。
A shriek from one of the goats became a signal for the wall of them to break. They pushed forward, with gaping mouths and foul breath, each trying to reach their prey first, trying to return these fictional creatures to nothingness. Regalia leapt in front of and held several of the seven sisters who had fallen on their butts, overpowered by the ferocity of the approaching goats. However, even Vergalia was a fictional creature to these goats. They could chew through her like cotton candy. Ronove threw himself at the incoming goats. Even he would be chewed apart easily. Knowing this, Ronove leapt forward.
魔法が通じずともこの炉の上忠義に熱き熱血感である事実は揺らぎません。ましてや不女子を見捨てることがあるとお思いで。炉の上は幻想。炉の上は幻想。
Ronove slammed his right fist into the side of a goat's face. As soon as he pulled it back, he swung his left leg into the goat's gut, then spun around in a reverse roundhouse that caught the goat again. Ronove knew. He knew he could do less damage than a mosquito bite against those who didn't accept his existence. This is what it meant to face an anti-magic defense of Endless Nine. The goat swung its long-like fist with a sound like a storm. Ronove dodged by a hair. If he had been an instant slower, the massive arm would have crushed his head like glass.
この炉の上、ご婦人のピンチを前にはついつい奮い立ってしまいます。私の悪い癖。
Ronove grinned and tried to act tough. He had already abandoned everything. There was nothing he could do here and now, except become a shield to buy time. He had already chosen to abandon his life for this. That's did Erica say that, or was that a thing Byrne would say, was puke spittle? I feel like that was something that one of those characters said. The goats kept coming, trying to feast on Ronove. None had any pretensions of making this a one-on-one fight. Nothing mattered except chewing apart fantasy, even just a nibble. As they gnashed their ruthless jaws and fangs, they gathered around Ronove. Ronove's foot hit something and he stumbled. In the same instant, several massive arms reached out and lifted him up. Uh-oh, R.I.P. Ronove? He's so chill while he's saying this. I mean, he's already made his peace, but still. An elbow rammed itself into the massive, hideous jaws that were trying to chew Ronove's head. Of course, the goat did moan, but that did nothing but deprive just one goat of his right to the first bite of Ronove's head. Many jaws opened wide, trying to crush him and throw him down into the heartless stomachs, which would permit no heartwarming fantasies to exist. Oh? Ooh. Who'd that be? All the many arms lifting Ronave were sliced off. Who could that be? Who has not entered yet? Maybe Erica, with her scythe, has come in? Seven Sisters used this chance to fly forward and grab Ronave, dragging him back. Or
ミステリー
Dillonor.
とおっしゃった方はどなたですか？
ドラノールの刃は通じるの？
そうか。相手がミステリーを主張するのなら。
Right, that makes sense. Blood red longsword in hand, Dillonor slowly walked forward. Behind her walked Will, tapping his back with his black... Oh, God, they're so cool.
ファンタジーじゃねえってなら聞こうじゃねえか。お前らの推理。
I'm glad we get more moments with these two. I really like these two. I forgot how cool Dillonor is. I really like her character.
皆さんのご考説とても楽しみです。
The crowd of goats stepped back. Though they had been so vicious against the fantasy creatures, they stepped back when faced with this pair wielding swords of mystery.
このゲーム版で行われた密室殺人の数々。
She's like, oh, you guys think you're so smart? Then tell us how it went.
どれからでも受けて立ちましょう。
違うぜ。受けて立つのは俺らじゃね
そうでした。ミステリーとは挑むもの。なぜに私たちが受けて立たねばというのか。
え。分かってんだろうな。
You are the ones in the hot seat now. Blue Truth cut the goats apart. Blue Truth dwelt with... I don't know why I thought Erica would be the one. That's the opposite of what Erica would do. She wants to find the truth. She wouldn't be defending these guys. That Blue Truth dwelt within each and every one of the riddles in Beato's games so far. What about the locked room with a chain? First game, second Twilight. What about the locked room with a chapel? Second game, first Twilight. What about the trick to killing Nanjo? Third game, ninth Twilight. There was no end to the blades. So there you go, just overwhelm them. With be like, alright, fine. You tell us how it went. The countless riddles Beatrice left behind became blades, challenges that tore the goats apart. If they wanted to deny fantasy, they'd have to make a counter-argument. They'd have to deal with every single trick as a mystery. However, although the goats spoke words of anti-fantasy, most of them had prepared no answer for the mystery. Well, every now and then there was a goat who did have an answer. One of them is like, duh, tiny bombs.
ノックス第1条。犯人は物語当初の登場人物以外を禁ず。
共犯でない複数の犯人が存在して偶然にも一人の犯人のように。バンダイン第12則。真犯人が複数であることを禁ず。そんなものまで禁止なんて。つまんねえだろう、そんなミステリー。だから俺は思うぜ。ミステリーはもっと自由であるべきだとな。ノックス自治会外もバンダイ20則も時代をくれ。ミステリーの定員は時代によってことごとなるはず。こいつら開き直りやがった。
やはり私たちは時代遅れということなのでしょう。
なら俺たちを納得させる推理を聞かせてみやがれ。
いざ来たれ。
The whole crowd of goats charged them. In their fangs, each of them carried theories to crush Beato's locked rooms. The bodies of these goats were different than the ones who had become corpses so easily just now. They had mystery-style answers to several locked rooms, so it would take several blade hits to deal them a fatal blow. However, Beato had left many blades behind. All of them were exceedingly sharp, so the pair of Inquisitors didn't think of this as a desperate battle. This was a mystery. The goal of a mystery is to use all your imagination and knowledge to challenge each of its riddles head-on. Doing this is the greatest enjoyment of the mystery genre. So they laughed. Both Will and Delanor laughed, with smiles of admiration at the theories the goats had put everything they had into, and countered with blades from all the locked rooms. The crowd of goats were no longer encirclement, but a great wave threatening to swallow the pair up. And yet, the pair repelled the enemy without giving an inch. They resisted firmly, cutting through the tsunami of wailing goats. It was like an ice-breaking ship knocking a path through a frozen sea. Nope, no hidden passages, or anything like that.
ノックス第3条秘密の通路の存在を禁ず
秘密の集合をしようが溶接して使用すること不可能にしたため検証時秘密の通路は存在してるのは存在してなくて
I have a general idea of the Nox rules, but the ones that Will's giving, there's 20 of them too. The one that's tripping me up when he said there has to be one true culprit, I'm like, I thought for many of the games that it was like multiple people working together. Then again, we do know culprit is someone who kills, in the context of the story, I guess. But I still felt like it was more than one person who killed.
ノックス第8条提示されない手がかりでの解決を禁ず
これは全て狂言殺人で誰も死亡していないだから密室は全て自傷犠牲者に落ちされた
Delanor hesitated for just an instant. After all, this cliched and simple theory managed to get around both Beato's locked rooms and the Nox Decalogue. Come on, Will, throw one of your rules out there. Delanor saw nothingness inside the goat's massive jaws. Let's get a cool CG with Will, too. Delanor got one. He's gonna sweep in. Yeah. Surely the jaws of that goat had closed over Delanor's head. However, the upper and lower jaw were no longer connected, so the upper half slid off to the side.
殺人以外のミステリーも立派なミステリーです
The goats didn't give the pair enough time to have a nice long chat about mystery. The next massive figure immediately enveloped them. Will's blade drew a diagonal slash across its chest, but it only cut through the clothes, leaving no wound. Delanor also hit it with her long sword, but still, it just cut its clothes without leaving a mark on its body. Could it be that this goat has a theory that didn't violate Nox or Van Dyne? Oh, so he's just, like, basically just writing them both off. In an attempt to stop the goat from saying any more, Will and Delanor hit it with blades from every locked room, as well as stakes from the 10 Commandments and the 20 Rules, but none of it had any effect. What could it be? Is it like, if there was no locked room to begin with? What could the rule be? Slowly the goat clenched its massive fists together and raised them high. No, not my boy! With a roar, Will slammed into the goat giant with his body. Though its massive bulk bent slightly, Will was still leaping into a death trap. However, if he hadn't done so, he wouldn't have been able to protect Delanor. The goat grabbed Will. It lifted him up and held him high in the air. It was like a little kid showing off his favorite toy and waving it around. Better not hurt him. I'm glad Ronave is safe, but I like Will more. If there's one that has to survive, I hope it's Will.
ライトの最後にはふさわしいだろうよ。
バンダイノノクスも水には何の役にも立たない。
What? That's it? It's just that's old, like out with the old, in with the new, basically. It's just like that stuff is outdated. The goat's massive hands closed on Will like a vice. All the bones in Will's body creaked.
聞かせろよ、お前の推理。
必要がない。
何？
なぜならベアトリッチの情報など全て推理するのさえバカさばかし。
Oh, I wonder if it's the whole thing about, like, because of Ava's diary. Like, the truth is there somewhere, so there's no point. Maybe he's one of the goats that knows about the, about Ava's diary.
こんなのは本格推理じゃない。考えるだけ時間の無駄だ。ベアトリッチのゲームなどミステリーなどと俺は認めない。すべてのトリックに回答など全部。
Oh, wait. Okay, they're going the other way.
考えるだけ時間の無駄。
Will's head was lowered so his face couldn't be seen. However, the arm of the goat holding him was shaking. The embrace of those log-sized arms with superhuman strength was being slowly pushed away by Will's shaking arms.
考えるだけ時間の無駄。お前ミステリーを語ってその言葉を口にするのか。ミステリーってのはな、騎士道なんだよ。自らの掲げた高潔なルールで挑む、その姿勢を誇るもんなんだよ。勝てば卑怯でいいのか、どんなに気高く戦っても負ければ意味はないのか。勝ち負けじゃねえだろ。それでも戦う気高さを誇るもんだろ。
The goat's arms were now spread wide, and it looked as though Will was now the one pushing it back. Will's face was covered in shadow and couldn't be seen. Come on, cool CG. I need a cool CG of him being badass, please. I beg of you.
お前のようなミステリーをする気もねえのにミステリーを語るやつがよ、俺は一番気に入らねえんだよ。
Will slammed his forehead into the goat's now unprotected head.
ミステリーを語るなら思考で戦う姿勢を誇れ。ミステリーを語るなら二度と思考の停止を誇らしげに語るんじゃねえ。
Will headbutted the goat over and over again. His forehead was gushing blood, torn apart by the goat's fangs, but he kept on headbutting. Van Dyne and Knox may be behind the times. The mystery genre does progress with time, just like the world around it. However, there's one thing that must never change. This is pride. What is a knight proud of? Not victory. He's proud of the courage that lets him stand up to anyone without fear. Will couldn't forgive the kind of coward who could turn tail from a fight and then brag about it. People who call themselves mystery fans but who have no pride are the only ones Will just couldn't bear. The goat, unable to put up with this anymore, threw Will down to the floor. Then he lifted his fist again, determined to crush Will to pieces this time.
キラ、お前は俺を叩き潰すだろうよ。だがそれはお前の勝利じゃねえ。お前は自らのプライドを自らの手で叩き潰すんだよ。
こんなもんミステリーじゃない。推理の必要もない。考えるだけ時間の無駄だ。死ね死ね死ね。
Ooh. Who dat? A fist like a cannonball swinging down toward him was the very last thing Will saw before he shut his eyes.
思考停止は
That's the gold truth, the golden truth.
このゲームじゃ敗北ってことになってるぜ。
Perhaps it's in gold, so I was like, maybe. Battler smashed his fist into the goat's mouth, and smashed teeth bounced off the ceiling.
バトラ様、思考停止ってことはミステリーであることを諦めたってことだぜ。ってことはお前にとってはこのゲームはファンタジーってことだな。
Oh, and if the game is a fantasy, that means the fantasy creatures can kill it, right? Is that what he's getting at? Or is he just using shame? Battler lifted up his arm, realizing this was a signal. Yep, Lucifer and Chester jumped.
思考を止めたならお前はもう舞台の上にいるべき役者じゃねえ。偉そうに語ってないで観覧席でポップコーンでも食ってろよ。
The goat lifted his fist again and swung it down on Battler like a hammer.
ファンタジーに屈したなら
ただの的でしかないに。
それはすなわち私たちの存在を認めるも同じということ。
敵識別を開始。魔法攻撃可能な個体を HMD にマーキング。
ファンタジーに屈服してる子は私たちが相手してあげる。
推理があるならば
Oh, it's nice. They got them on all sides.
そういう輩は大歓迎だぜ。敬意を示して全力で受け止めてやら。
おっと、しかしここはバトラ様の見せ場のようですな。
ミステリーもファンタジーもお前ら自慢のご考説をゆっくりと拝聴してところだがな。しかし今回はお前らのゲームじゃない。お前ら未来のかけらがどんなに否定しようとも俺は折れるわけにはいかねえんだよ。
Golden glint gathered in Battler's hand. It was so bright the whole hall was bathed in gold. Golden butterflies flitted about as though the whole hall was being swallowed up by the golden land. Yep, Battler lifted his golden longsword
ミ
high.
ステリーもファンタジーもベアとのゲームに挑む姿勢は大いに結構だ。歓迎もする。だがな、俺のこの最後のゲームの否定だけは絶対にさせねえ。眠る者の尊厳を傷つける不謹慎を知れ。
Slice of the golden longsword flooded the hall with a sea of golden light. And the whole group of goats filling the hall with noise turned into clouds of gold butterflies and scattered. Even so, only about 100 of them had been wiped out. Before long, the massive crowds of goats outside would probably come pouring in like seawater through a hole in the bottom of a ship.
ガートルードたちの封印はもう少しだ。すまないがもうしばらくここを持ちこたえてくれ。
もちろんだよバトラ卿。
それくらいしか私たちに見せ場はないし。
You two do nothing. You guys are just like, you're just hype people. That's all you are. You're like cheerleaders. Exactly. Thank you, Will.
だって
私たちは
司会者だし。
Or the MCs. That's a good way of putting it, too. Their excessively blunt refusal drew a few strange smiles. However, it had lessened the tension in the room just a bit.
バトラ様、ここは私たちにお任せを。これ以上の侵食を許しはしません。そして私たちの誰も決してかけることはありません。
無論です。なぜなら私たちもバトラ卿のゲーム版の大切な駒なのですから。
The seven sisters of Purgatory, the Chester sister troops, and everyone else nodded forcefully.
ああ、頼むぜ。みんな、エンジェのための最後のゲーム、絶対に守るぞ。下はなんとか持ちこたえてる。
黄金鏡の扉もゆっくりと開き続けているぞ。まだ時間がかかるがな。
そういうわけだ。俺たちも時間を稼がねえとな。
A sea of goats that covered the ground below them was jostling about more and more. By now, even the sea surrounding the island had disappeared. The horizon was gone, and the chewed-up island was now floating on an eerie emptiness like space. The goats that flooded the edges of Rokunjima seemed to be spilling off the sides.
このゲーム版はもうおしまいだな。
ゲームマスターがいてコマが揃ってさえいればいつかゲーム版などまた広げられる。ゲームなど人が2人揃いさえすれば何だってできるのだからな。
そうだな。エンジは一体どこへ？
例のあれはどこ？
そうだ。礼拝堂はどうだって？
まだ残っている。
Chapel looked like a white building floating in the pitch-black sea of goats. Yes, this was strange. There was no way those goats, who consumed everything, would go out of their way to avoid just the chapel.
エンジはあそこだ。
Alright, so that will do it for this episode. It seems like we're gonna have that kind of final showdown between Badler and Ange soon, with this whole thing about the island, the CATBOX being eaten up and eroded away by people from the past throwing out their theories. That was an awesome fight. It was good to see everybody kind of fighting together. But yeah, see if we have like a Badler Ange showdown. Get into the chapel, see what's gonna happen, see if Ange will be making that choice soon. So thank you guys so much for watching this episode, and stay tuned next week for part 94. Until then, bye. Special shoutouts to my top tier patrons: Kiori Makoto, SM, Revealing Storm, Tequila Mockingbird, Asborn Kennedy, Harry Gazif, iCognito, Jared Fan, Joel Oostman, and Zoran Ether.